A class like that one.
Like the plain one?
Yeah.
Here's another idea. We were talking about the idea of echoing the title and do first name and, no, actually, this was Brian's idea. First name in caps like the sin, and then, second name in lowercase.
No, I'm totally opposed to that, particularly for women, because women always get called by their first names. I think that's a totally not good thing to do.
Yeah, you're right. You don't want to get cute with your own name.
Right, you don't want to get cute with your own name, right? Cute. Not a good idea.
I think there were two things that focused on the issue of professional preparation. One, each student's work was going to be exhibited publicly in the University Art Museum at the end of the semester. Students visited the gallery space early on, dealt with everything from invitations to press conferences, and thoughts of the deadline were constant companions.
And I'm looking at my calendar, and there are not enough weeks and not enough hours in the day.
She always says we're creating objects. It's not just poof out of our minds made once we think about it. And we have to consider everything about its appearance and from start to finish.
The other aspect that I really observed is pressing them, really, pushing them to be professional about their presentation, getting their statement written, having their work professionally mounted so that it could be installed in an elegant fashion or not in a raggedy and amateurish way. These issues of finish, of public presentation, preparing publicity and news releases, all of these things I think are very important as professional tools for students, completely apart from whether or not they can draw well or whether or not the content in their art is important.
I was just telling them, and and I always do frames. It's the first time that I try not doing frames, so.
The other thing you could have done would have been to mount them on something that would have extended them from the wall.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Like some kind of boards in the back, you mean?
Just like a hanging strip, so that they got, they were out a little bit. It's just that they have so much strength. I feel like they need.
So you don't think the thickness of the board is enough to take them?
No, it's not that. It's the thickness of the board. It just it somehow doesn't honor the images in terms of how strong they are. The presentation doesn't honor the images. I think that they need a more formal presentation. Well, you're going to do it this time, but I think you need to think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do them this way, then they really need to be really big. I mean, I could see them really big. I mean, I could see this life size. Because then they will disappear as physical objects. In other words, you won't be conscious of the edge. You won't be conscious of the fact that you're looking at a physical object. You won't be aware of it. It'll just be on the wall, and then it will have such commanding presence.
The second thing I noticed was that Judy treated all of the students as practicing artists, or at least as students who were serious about a professional career in the arts. Clearly, this was not a class for dabblers.
You have to realize that I am shortly going to get impatient with you, and I'll tell you why. Because my whole life, when I came up against how much time something was going to take, how much money something was going to cost, that did not for me become an excuse for not doing it. So I mean, it's very hard for me to hear you guys come up against how many hours it's going to take or how much money it's going to cost. Because if you're not willing to put in time and you're not willing to put in money, you can't make art. You have to go where the art takes you. And if you're not prepared for it, then I can't talk to you, because this huge gulf opens up between us. Because I'm trying to help you understand what's involved in professional art practice. That's what's involved in professional art practice. Your life has to be in the service of whatever the hell your art needs. Time-wise, money-wise, energy-wise, attention-wise, everything. And if you're not prepared for that, then the best thing you could get out of this class is that you're not prepared to be a professional artist.
I had often thought that people who achieved success, certainly fame, had a single-mindedness of purpose. Judy's life is a perfect example of this. But can you teach single-mindedness? And is it harder to obtain for women?
The numbers of women that are in art school, I mean, they're more than half of the world's art schools are full of women, But when they finally make it into the professional world, they lose steam. They drop out. They lose courage. They don't know how to then make themselves professional. And that was hard for her personally, and I think she feels it's very important to bear down on the students when she has them in her hand and teach them how to become professionals so that when they're on their own outside of the support group at school, they will know how to take steps to assert themselves professionally.
Now, I learned something with this class that I had not actually ever thought about before, which has to do with what I call now the particular way in which institutions infantilize women students. That is, male students, men are socialized towards independence. Women are not socialized by and large to independence. And so what happens is, when they leave the institution, they really don't know how to begin to be an independent artist, which requires raising money, getting a studio, getting equipment of your own, taking risks, going out into the world in a kind of entrepreneurial way. On the contrary, they're much more comfortable being connected and being dependent. And so, I mean, they don't really know how to yet forge an independent identity. So, you know, what happens is women keep going back to school. I've actually now understood why this happens. They keep going back to school. They keep going back to take classes so that they can use the photo darkroom or they can work in the ceramic studio because they can't imagine, well, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get a studio, I'm going to make enough money, I'm going to buy myself a kiln, I want to do big scale sculpture, so I'm going to now have to figure out how to get a big scale studio with overhead cranes to move the ceramics around. There are very few women, young women, who are prepared for that. By the time I got out of graduate school, I had met the kind of like art stars in the Los Angeles scene, the guys, they were all guys. And I had learned from them that they had said that they were never going to get a full-time job. They didn't get a full-time job because their full-time job was being artists. And that meant living with something called the something's going to happen system of living. Now, this is a system of living that's very difficult for women because it is completely insecure, totally insecure.
I was curious how the students felt about these issues. What did success mean to them? Did they feel any pressure to go out and quote-unquote make it?
Well, I've made choices where I decided I would have a family, and my kids are really important to me, and I actually, that was probably the first argument I had with Judy. What do you mean you want balance in your life, you know?
I think that there's as many definitions of a success as there are people, because I don't have as much of a need to be famous as I do to just be respected among my peers and to be doing work that I think is important and meaningful to me. And
I feel bad saying this, but it seems like women tend to feel more comfortable with just being successful among the peers. It's, you know, they're not out for the success, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the trouble we've had in the art world or not, but just, I don't know, our contentment with being behind the scenes. So that kind of scares me when you say that. I mean, that's how I feel. I mean, I would be perfectly happy with just, you know, teaching people what I've learned and what I know. But at the same time, it's like, I do want to get out there and be a force to be reckoned with.
But see, I guess, you know, if I were to be critical of Judy, I would say that if you're manic about it, about this idea of fame, and this need to be just go, 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 that's male. And that's a male-driven culture. And if I'm going to be feminist, my version of feminism is more balanced and means that my whole life is an artistic, it takes on a shape, and that it allows time for my garden, my dog, my kids, you know, all those things, because that whole, that spectrum of my life also feeds the artistic center for me. Is that a compromise?
It probably isn't, as long as we aren't fooling ourselves and really know what we want. As Judy says, we can't blame others for not pursuing our ambitions.
Congealed is what you're trying to get, a sense of congealed. Congealed memory, congealed potential.
Of course, not everyone is as sure as she was about her goals.
I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted my work in art history.
So did you think about, like, I want to be famous?
Yeah.
Or just you want to spread your...
I want to be famous. Actually, I was actually famous early. I was in Time magazine when I was 25. I always knew I was going to be famous. Actually, I just knew I was going to be famous. And so when I got famous, I actually felt like I'd become myself.